Hi guys,
Hi.
nice speech of all of you, thank you very much, it was very interesting. And I just wanted to know what suburb you're located.
Yep, so Dan and I work out of two separate studios. Dan has a studio in Belgrave, and mine is currently out at Healesville, but we'll soon be moving out to Kangaroo Ground area. Yeah.
Alrighty, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hey guys. They were very good presentations. My question is to Chris. In your introduction, Chris, I was very interested that you don't come from a print background, and one thing I'd find very interesting is maybe if you could explain a bit about your journey from when you first started screen printing and not really knowing anything about it, to how you went to running a professional screen printing business, and some of the milestones on the way, and also some of the things, if you were to start again, you wouldn't do, and some of the things you would do.
There was a lot of mistakes, like lots and lots and lots of mistakes, lots of wasted paper. But I guess in my studying as an artist, I did a lot of traditional printmaking, so mostly lino cut, a bit of etching, some stencil stuff. So I did have an idea of the process. Yeah, and we just sort of stumbled into it. Like, we got back, me and my wife had been living in Europe for a couple of years, and we saw a few print shops over in there, and we bought quite a few screen prints, and we thought it was great. So we came back, and a friend of mine was selling a t-shirt printing setup, which we started printing on, which we actually probably printed on that for about a year, and that was completely sort of inadequate for printing on paper. So I guess... Oh God! I guess if I start again, I wouldn't have started with a t-shirt press for printing paper. And I guess the main issue is that it just doesn't suck the paper down, and it's not particularly sort of stable. But I guess in terms of overcoming issues, it's just trial and error. Like, I did know a couple of other screen printers who are really generous with their time and their knowledge. They were all t-shirt printers, but like just with the technical stuff, like the films, exposures, sort of back-end stuff, setting up different types of inks. With a couple of really good suppliers as well, who really just, everyone, like as you said, everyone who's in the industry loves to have a chat to someone else in the industry. So I've got lots of time on the phone to our suppliers who are really experienced, to, just willing to have a chat about stuff. Yeah, but it was just really, it was a trial and error process. Like, and I still come across things now that I've just don't really know exactly how to do, and you just got to try a few things. Yeah, but it's been pretty. It's always challenging, not really going in there and just running through the motions each day. Yeah.
Thanks.
This is for Chris. Just wondering, could you give us a basic ballpark figure if you were going to do like a 4-colour A4 print of an artwork? As an artist, what sort of price would we be looking at? Say maybe a run of 100. What sort of, could you give a basic?
Yeah. So it really, like, the biggest variation in that is paper. Mm-hmm. We've got some really quite cheap poster stocks that you'd be looking at maybe 50 cents to $1 per sheet, and that can go up to then, really good quality cotton archival paper can be up to about $8 a sheet, even at that size. Like the best stuff's probably about that much. So probably for a 4-colour run of 100, I'm just ballpark about $1,000. Like, I'm guessing. Could be that, including give or take $500 for paper cost. We've got a really in-depth pricing structure, so it's we do have a pricing guide on our website. Okay, so cool. It's just, there's a little price list link at the bottom which gives you a ballpark figure for stuff like that. But yeah, it's not. Oh, I mean, you work that out though. It's pretty cheap per print once you go up to quantities of 100. It's when it's down at 20 or 10 prints that the per print price is really expensive. Yeah. Okay.
And do you keep the screens on hand, or if you need? No, so it's a one-off.
Yeah. We've only got sort of limited space. So after each job, we wash the screen out. We keep the films. So if you did want to get something reprinted, it sort of cuts out the film cost for the next one, but we haven't got enough sort of screens and space to keep the artwork on screen. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
I've got a question that applies to Chris, Dan and Sarah. Dan, when you got into the industry, the trade was still employing apprentices. Obviously, Chris and Sarah, you're self-taught. I'm wondering, in this day and age, do screen printers and letterpress folk still take on apprentices for apprenticeships?
Short answer to that question is no. It's going back to the 70s. We were really still stuck in the 50s, and the amount of time that an apprentice spent on the machine actually learning the trade could have quite easily been done in 2 years. It was really a form of cheap labour. When it comes to training people up effectively on letterpress nowadays, it has to be done with the mind to what the person's actually going to be doing with the press. Going back to the 70s when I was running the machine, we were doing everything. Everything that you think of that you picked up as a print, like an envelope, a business card, a letterheading, an invoice, all done letterpress, and you had to know how to do that. But nowadays, it's very specific. The sort of work that's being done is predominantly, well, business cards and invites, and that's about it. So to train somebody up to actually do that is pretty quick compared to 5.5 years. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was wondering how Chris felt about the same question in regards to the screen printing industry.
I think probably in like most creative fields, it's through internships now. I mean, we've had a couple of interns who have gone on to work for us for a short amount of time. Yeah, I guess working as a t-shirt printer, I think there are some courses. Maybe RMIT's, I don't know if they still do. They used to have a screen printing course. And it's probably about just getting a job in a t-shirt place. There's still plenty of places that print t-shirts around. For what we do, though, I mean, when I was learning, there wasn't anyone sort of to go for an apprenticeship with. So, but in terms of us, we wouldn't know. I've employed a printer who had printing experience, but I wouldn't be doing an apprenticeship.
Cool, thanks.
I've got a question for Dan and Sarah. So I just wanted to kind of ask a little bit about the differences between printing letterpress versus when you go and print foil. How are they? Can you talk a bit about like the different processes themselves?
Yes.
Kind of the differences between printing letterpress versus printing your foil foil stamp.
Right. Yeah.
I could answer my answer and then you can give yours from the technical.
We're confusing.
So letterpress is, as you can see, printed from a polymer plate. You can achieve quite deep impression. Crisp, pillowy, I suppose. Foil, if you want a really high metallic finish, so if you want shiny gold or shiny silver, that's not really possible with letterpress because you can print gold and silver, but you're going to get a matte finish due to the cotton paper and possibly other issues, I don't know. But foil is, Dan can explain how the actual foiling process works, but foil is like a big long sheet of shiny, almost like gift wrap that runs on a big roll. So it looks
a bit like gold leaf?
Yeah, almost, yeah, except it's on a film with a backing, I don't know what it is, you'll know. Foil is very similar to letterpress, but it involves heat, so heat and pressure, whereas letterpress just involves ink and pressure. So same kind of concept, but with foil, there are limitations in terms of the amount of impression you can achieve, because if you go too deep, you get a thing known as flooding, where the foil, and I don't know what causes it, but the foil kind of, you don't get a crisp, high definition kind of result. It's a bit kind of blurry or smudgy, which doesn't look good. So you can achieve some impression with foil using one of those magnesium dyes that I showed earlier, which is the same concept as the plate, except it's a metal dye. and it's metal due to the fact that you're using heat. You obviously couldn't foil with a plastic plate because it would melt. So yeah, you can get some impression with foil, but foil can also be a very flat finish, as can letterpress, I suppose. So it's all about the aesthetic and what you're wanting to achieve. But everything we do that's foil tends to have some impression. It just might not be as deep as what we could achieve if we were just doing letterpress. Don't know if you have anything else to add.
I think you've done it all. I guess the only other part of it is what the application for foil is nowadays. They used to modify platens to run foil, and that meant chopping bits off and welding stuff on. But we have an attachment for the platen that sits on top of it. The chase is replaced by a heated base that plugs into the attachment that sits on top of the platen. There's a proximity switch that sits on the big main roller of the platen that tells the foiling attachment exactly where it is at given time. And the foil's fed out from underneath the chase over the front of what Sarah was talking about, the die, and then over the back as waste. For every impression, the foil moves around, well, however far you want to tell it to move. If you've got an image that's big, then it's going to have to go up that far. And that's the new way of doing foiling as opposed to the old way, whereby the older presses were set up to just foil. But now we've got the versatility of being able to say, well, okay, we're going to run a foil job, put a foiling unit on. Or no, we're doing letterpress, so take the foiling unit off. Long answer, short question.
Thanks, guys.
Is that, do you apply glue and then the foil? Okay.
It's just heat around the back of the block. Sorry, around the back. It's just heat around the back of the block that heats up the metal in the magnesium, and then when the that's right.
Are you asking how do you mount the die to the heated plate?
Is there glue applied to the paper for
Nah.
foil to adhesive?
No, it's just a foil, and it's just like a big strip of Baco foil, really.
Yeah, we started doing it. We printed glue and then hit the
Ah,
foil
right.
onto the glue.
Don't talk to him as a competitor.
See what I mean?
That's really cool. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to tell us about that? That sounds really cool.
So it's exactly the same. Yeah, exactly the same process as screen printing. We make a screen, we print an adhesive onto the paper, and we have film on a roll that then we heat press basically on, and the glue activates, takes the film, and we peel the film off, and that is then stuck on the paper. Although we've only done maybe two jobs, so still very learning it. And we're looking at a pressure activated glue as well instead of a heat activated one, so we can do larger areas because we've only got a really little heat press. But yeah, I'm doing one at the moment with, it's like an A1 print with this Jesus halo. It's about yay big around the back of the head in gold. So see how it goes, but yeah. Yeah, next Saturday it's open. Yeah. Yes, there'll be beer. Yeah. There's always beer at the studio.
This is probably to Dan and Sarah. Have you ever considered, when you do the letterpress, does it have to be clean paper, or could you like letterpress onto an artwork that maybe has been screen printed or painted?
You can print. We have printed letterpress over the top of digital. We could print letterpress over the top of offset. If it's the one thing that the platen's very good at, it's very versatile at picking up what I call dodgy stock, which is things that are a little bit out of shape or curly. But in as much as printing on something that's been painted, I've never been asked that before, but I'd certainly be willing to give it a go.
Because imagine the artwork that you could create if you were combining both of the processes, screen printing and then letterpress. Amazing sort of work.
It'd look very different.
Yeah.
I have one point to make on that.
What's that? You go for it.
Are you finished?
Yep.
Yep. One point I would make is that letterpress is best suited to papers that will take the impression, so cotton papers. Works beautifully on thicker stocks, like 600. You can see some 600 GSM over there, or 500. Particularly if you're doing double-sided on letterpress, because you do have a bit of show-through if you're achieving some impression. You don't want to affect the other side of the card. If you're doing, say, two-sided business cards, you'd be looking at 600 GSM, because then you can achieve a decent impression on both sides. But the problem with digital print and offset is that you can only run stocks of a certain thickness through the press. So Dan can get the 300 GSM cotton through the digital press. So you could, with the way that we do it, you could do, say, a digital invitation and then do a letterpress overlay or something like that.
I was actually thinking more original artwork on paper, thick paper and then letterpress.
I reckon
You could, although if it didn't, I don't know.
I reckon if it
take the impression, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I reckon if it was watercolour,
Yeah.
I reckon it'd do it.
On the stock would be my answer, but your answer.
Because a lot of watercolours paint. I'm not an artist,
Yeah, if it's on art paper.
or on like a blotting paper like we use. Then watercolour, I'd say that'd work. But if it was oil painting, it'd crack.
What about acrylic paint? So if it was like on a thick 300 GSM like printmaking paper, like a Stonehenge or something like that, and then you paint that and then you letterpress over the top, would that work?
It'd be suck it and see for me, because I'll have to put it on the machine and try it, and if it works, it works.
All right, that sounds interesting. Thank you.
It does all that stuff for artwork. You wonder what about.
But you might want to think about, I'll certainly have a think about just acrylic paint, like wall paint.
No, acrylic artist paint. So it's
Right.
so like as an artist, it's acrylic paint. So it's plasticized. And just painting on paper.
All right. Good question. You got me thinking.
This one's to all of you. I was just wondering how important over here. I was just wondering how important you find sustainability and being environmentally conscious is to your chosen fields.
Oh, how long you got? Well, I'll start, but I'll be real quick, okay? Everybody wants recycled paper. There was a huge article in all the major print mags the other week about recycled stock is actually worse for the environment than growing trees, chopping them down and making paper. Being that when we're recycling stock, the trees aren't soaking up the carbon. The stocks that we use are FSC approved, so it's forest management. The trees are chopped down and replanted. So, yeah, I think the jury's still out. But do you want to have a talk on that?
I haven't really thought about paper as such, but I think by nature printing's a fairly energy. It takes a lot of energy to do it. We've got a big studio. It's a big open space. It's sort of the things that we do take quite a bit of electricity. We do, and that's one reason why we want to continue printing with water-based ink, because it's non-toxic. It's not as bad as the solvent-based inks, although there are certain qualities that you can't get out of water-based ink you can get from solvent-based ink. For us, it is important, but there's a line where it becomes way too expensive to actually make a profit. If you were going down the line of trying to be environmentally friendly with absolutely everything. But yeah, it's definitely important, but there's a line between, being actually being able to run a business and, having an environmentally friendly sort of process. Yeah.
I would say one thing, which is that we print pretty much exclusively on cotton stock, so no trees. It's just cotton that's getting killed. So I reckon we are environmentally friendly.
On that stock?
Yes, on that stock, only herding cotton. And we don't use soy-based inks or anything like that. We use rubber-based, so yeah. But I don't know. I actually haven't tried soy-based. Have you ever tried them?
It tastes horrible.
All I have to say.
All right, on that note, is there one last question? Or are we all done? Okay, one last. Lucky last. Last question of the year at a Redbubble talk. You better make it good. Pressure is on.
So I was just wondering, because you had the desk operated printing machine. I was just seeing, I don't know how you made the, because were you still working your other job when you had that machine, I'm guessing? And then how did you make the step from, like, you know, lady in an office who's got a desk thing to, like, buying big machines and, yeah.
I'm crazy. No, so my husband and I were living in a really little apartment in Balmain in Sydney, and that was when I became interested in letterpress. So yeah, like I said, I didn't have any room for a floor platen, so I had the tabletop, and I worked that for a little while, and then the step I made was we actually decided to move to New Zealand. We lived in Queenstown in New Zealand for about 5 years. Yeah, it was cool. It was a really nice place. And that was actually, ironically, where my business grew. I had my first daughter when we were over there. Well, actually, we moved to Queenstown. I had another job in marketing, which I also hated. So obviously me and marketing, not good. Except if I'm marketing my own business, and then I'm fine. But working for someone else just doesn't do it. So I had a marketing job over there, and I was doing my business on the side. So I just used to work all the time, weekends, evenings. I knew I wanted to do it, so I was willing to just work a lot. So no real free time. And to be honest, I still don't really have much free time. But that's like any business owner, I think. Your business just kind of becomes a very important part of your life. It is like another kid, really. And I had my marketing job in Queenstown. I was still doing my business. And I was there for about a year. And then, I got pregnant with my daughter, and I went on maternity leave. And when I was on maternity leave, my business just really started growing. I think because for the first time ever, I actually had a lot of time to devote to it. So that's all I was doing. And although we were in New Zealand and I was shipping stuff across the seas, because the market was always like 95% Australian based. So we had a little bit of a market in New Zealand, but it was always sending stuff back to Oz. So I did that for 5 years. And then it really got to a point where business was just growing, and I was finding it very stressful to have to ship stuff and having stuff go through customs, and just turnaround times. Like with Letterpress, we try and say, look, from receipt of final art or from the time you approve final art, it's going to be, like 2 to 3 weeks turnaround for Letterpress. But often someone will come along and be like, my wedding's, I'm in a frantic rush, and you can do it. You don't want to say no. No business person likes to say no to money, so you say yes to everything. And but tight turnarounds when you're overseas, and it's going to take like 5 days to get it here, and there's no courier, very stressful. So I got to a point where I just couldn't deal with that anymore, and my husband and I decided we were going to move back. And we moved back in March last year, and then Dan and I met really shortly after that, and I had my Heidelberg sitting there ready to go, and business was at the point where it really needed to be run off a machine that had the pace of something like a Heidelberg, something that can just really churn it out. And that's it. Rest is history, really. So did that answer your question? Sorry, what was that? Yeah. And then you went to the big machines. The Chandler and Price, yeah. How long did you got? The time frame. I think I got the Adana in 2005 because that was when I first got interested in it, and I think I'm just thinking it was actually really quick. Yeah, it was like I realised really quickly that it wasn't going to do what I wanted it to do. So I kind of started by I realised I really liked letterpress, and I started. There's a really good forum if you're interested in it called briarpress.org, and there's lots of people like Dan on there, printers with just so much history and knowledge who are interested in it, and people like me who are like hungry for that knowledge and don't have anyone to teach them, because not everyone has a Dan, like not everyone has that. And no one else can have him, by the way, because you can only have one apprentice, that's it. So, yeah, so Dan is my mentor as well as working together. He teaches me how to use the Heidelberg. But what was my point? Can't remember. Yeah, so that was where I started learning about letterpress, was on forums like that, and finding out about how it really worked. And I remember looking up the Adana and thinking, is this going to do what I want it to do? But until you touch it, you just don't know. So I think I paid way too much for it, but I was really excited. And it did get me understanding the concept of how a platen press works, because the concept is essentially the same. Not the concept with the Heidelberg, that's completely different. But with a platen press, the concept is the same. So I think it was probably like within a year I was like, nah, this isn't going to cut it. And I wanted something else. And then, yeah. So don't go into it unless you have a big garage. And, yeah, an understanding husband, that would be my answer.